Mr Joy's problem results from recent elections, which saw a rival team gain power on the union's state executive. While he won a local rank-and-file ballot for the secretary's position for another 3 years, the 15-member state executive has appointed 3 other people to the paid organising jobs. Mr Joy says this is a political decision, not based on the relative merits of the people involved, and will be detrimental to the membership here.
Their sub-branch secretary is not employed by the branch committee of management. Then they want a special meeting to determine their attitudes to those decisions. I believe the decision is political, it's not on merit, and that our members will need to evaluate how they're going to be disadvantaged by these decisions.
Mr Joy is entitled to be secretary for 3 years and has no intention of resigning, and says the rank and file will back him in his efforts to return to paid union employment. This is why he's called the stop work for 7 o'clock on Thursday night at the Police Citizens Boys Club at Broadmeadow. Mr Joy was confident today that members will consider some form of industrial action to assist his campaign.
The black spot for speed this weekend was at the Ironbark Creek Bridge at Sandgate. In the 80km/h zone, police reported stopping dozens of motorists for speeding. This morning, 15 people were booked. Drink drivers, though, were far harder to find. Only 12 people were charged with PCA offences from Thursday night through to this afternoon. The holiday Monday failed to quell the urge to shop, and businesses at both Charlestown Shopping Square and Garden City were happy to oblige by opening for several hours today. The Charlestown business was brisk from 10 o'clock. A quick check of the square computer graph showed shopping numbers to have peaked at midday when 3,000 people were on hand.
A normal Monday we'd expect about 20,000 people, and at the moment we're just under 30,000 people for the day. I think the major cause of that is the fact that you tend to get the husbands and the children coming along on a public holiday that you normally wouldn't get.
At Garden City, numbers were slightly less. Many shopkeepers there reported slow trading. Most businesses had shut up by 2 o'clock. Those who were there, though, were treated to a rare piece of entertainment, an act by Jojo Silva, one of only 2 computerised robot entertainers, presently doing a short stint at the centre.
And all those vows we made were never to be.
With only a few hundred metres to go before pilot David Freeman was to land at Fletcher Park, he noticed a dramatic drop in hydraulic pressure. The critically ill patient suffering a respiratory complaint, the pilot decided to make an emergency landing on the beach. Sergeant Alex Whiteley, who was clearing the park for the helicopter to land, said he knew something was wrong when it began to crab sideways.
Slowly went down onto the beach out of our view, and obviously that frightened us straight away because that's never happened before. When I looked over the edge, I could see that it had skidded to a halt, basically landed like an aeroplane.
Pilot Freeman says a sandy landing was his only option.
Yeah, we're on final approach here for the Fletcher Park pad, and the hydraulics failed on the aircraft, and it's far too small to put it down up there, and our patient, as I say, was critically ill, so this was the closest spot and the safest spot to put it down, and so we're here now.
The rotor blades were only metres from clipping the concrete promenade. To beat an incoming tide, a quick inspection was made of the engine, and it was decided to use its own power to move it away from the water to enable repairs to be made. With a wobble, the disabled chopper lifted off and skidded further along the beach. Maintenance engineers will work on the aircraft overnight to have it flying again by tomorrow morning. Darren Curtis for NBN News. Titled Women in the Workforce, an exploration in career options for women, it is designed to let prospective students and Year 12 leavers know of the study options available to them. Organiser Gail White says visitors to the display will also be able to get some practical experience.
We have equipment from the physics department, we have equipment from biology, information on how to get into courses like medicine, nursing, architecture, those sorts of things. But we also have women who are currently working in fields like engineering who can talk to them so they can ask questions.
More than 1,000 people are expected to pass through the exhibition for its 10 days at the Hunter Institute. Darren Curtis for NBN News. St Peter's in the blue and white jerseys dominated most of the play throughout, keeping St Catherine's pinned in their goal area for the most part of the game. It was a rough encounter with neither side giving an inch in man-on-man plays. St Peter's continued their good record, winning 9-4-58 to 1-1-7. It's the fourth year the Maitland boys have won the Cup in its 6-year history.
Questions over the reliability of breast screening were raised when a group of Newcastle cancer experts wrote to the Australian Medical Journal. They were concerned that in 31% of cases the mammogram was wrong. That is, it gave a clear result when in fact the patient had evidence of breast cancer. The doctors went to great lengths to alert medical practitioners that a biopsy of a lump, feared cancerous, was the only way to be sure. The results were relevant only to those women who had a cancer diagnosed already. In a subsequent letter, the doctors have thrown their support behind mammography as the most effective screening method for early detection. The fear is that a false negative result must not mean the end of treatment, a concern echoed by the director of the Hunter Breast Screening Project, John Forbes.
When it's used for screening, that is, examination of a woman who doesn't appear to have anything wrong with her, the pickup rate's about 99%. But there is an important message that comes with the criticism of mammography, and that is that if a patient has a breast lump, even if the X-ray is normal, they still need treatment. For example, if a patient has a heart attack and you do a cholesterol level and it's normal, you don't ignore the heart attack. Or if they're coughing up some blood and the chest X-ray is normal, you don't turn the patient away. And if the patient has a breast lump and the mammogram doesn't show it, you don't ignore the patient.
A record monthly deficit of $1.82 billion, almost $700 million greater than last month's and eclipsing the previous record set last October. The reasons? Imports continued to pour in, up 17% in the month. Mr. Keating says Australia's suffering from too much investment by up $250 million, while 2 new aircraft for Ansett notched up another $67 million.
Not nearly so light-hearted was the situation at Dora Creek last night. Although no one was injured, 6 families from the Lake Township were evacuated when the river broke its banks. Frantic sandbagging by the State Emergency Service and locals minimised damage, although the water lapped ominously high against the town shops for several hours. At one stage, several streets were so far under, police had to swap their patrol cars for a more appropriate vehicle. Some residents obviously thought the best policy in the crisis was to grin and bear it. One Cessnock street also felt the brunt of last night's rain. Teams of volunteers worked to fortress property, while families watched nervously as the water rose before their eyes. The damage was confined to Oliver Street, angry locals blaming mine subsidence.
All the creeks sunk, and we've been on to the water board and council for nearly 5 years now.
The rain continued last night, and today many parts of the Lower Hunter looked more suited to sailing than farming. Tester's Hollow between Maitland and Curry has flooded so often the warning sign is now semi-permanent. Last night the water was 1.5 metres over the road. It had dropped considerably by today, prompting some of the more adventurous to try to cross, not always with success. Flooding has closed a number of minor roads in the Lower Hunter. Several families at Pitnacree outside Maitland are isolated after the Porter's Hollow spillway overtopped this afternoon. The Bureau of Meteorology expects the swollen Hunter River to top at 9.2 metres at Maitland at around 6 tonight. Shortly after, the river will top at Morpeth, and that's causing real concern. The Road Traffic Authority has blocked the historic Morpeth Bridge, concerned that erosion of the bank could cause it to collapse.
And all them banks over there were out about level with the drums, where the drums are now, and it's caved back that far where the clear dirt is. And it's coming right back to this pier here now, and we're just waiting for the river to reach its height to make sure it don't undermine the piers.
Although it may not look much, this small hole about 4 metres in from the river itself is of the greatest concern here at the moment. It quite possibly means this whole area of bank has been undercut. If that goes, the probability of the pylon following increases dramatically. Some of the locals, however, are bemused by all the fuss. John Martin has seen a dozen floods since he moved to Morpeth in 1918.
No, nowhere near the biggest flood. No, there's been bigger than this one. This is only a mile one, this one.
The SES says the Hunter River is flowing well, and as long as there are no more falls, the water should subside. In the meantime, the beleaguered golf courses will be counting their woes. Only players exceptionally good at avoiding water traps need bother to tee off.
The man suffering from AIDS was one of 2 men killed when their car spun out of control, crashing into a brick wall on the Cessnock Road near Gilliston Heights. The men involved in the rescue were contacted by the Royal Newcastle Hospital yesterday and advised to undergo testing. 10 members of the volunteer rescue squad were tested for AIDS and hepatitis B last night. 15 more rescue personnel have requested tests. All will be retested in 3 months' time.
The Newcastle boys took on the Dragons in the first ever State Cup competition, winning 5 points to 3. Captain coach of the Newcastle side of the day, Dave Brown, says the enthusiasm for the game was not that different from today, with a full trainload of St George supporters arriving at the game, creating a great atmosphere.
We had a crowd of nearly 23,000 people, I think, which was the second highest that they've ever had at the sports ground, and it was a tremendous day and a tremendous atmosphere and a great day for Newcastle Rugby League.
9 of the old Newcastle side turned out today for a small reunion to spill over memories and enjoy a few quiet beers. Meanwhile, preparations are continuing tonight for tomorrow's game, with the Knights spending an estimated $20,000 on lighting alone and another $30,000 on entertainment. All grandstand seats have been sold for the Underlights clash, but plenty of ground tickets are still available.
Traffic was banked up to the lights at Mayfield this morning as work began on the Ironbark Bridge at Sandgate.
A recent study of the bridge and its approaches by the Road Traffic Authority recommended that a number of improvements be made. The first, that a concrete barrier be erected in the centre of the bridge to separate the carriageways. The second is that Newcastle City Council undertake urgent road repairs on the Hexham side of the bridge. The barrier, which is now under construction, is designed to deflect vehicles which veer to the wrong side of the road. Its curved shape minimises damage to the car and prevents the vehicle from overturning. The RTA expects work to be completed by the end of next week.
By now, players in this year's Winfield Cup must wonder what a dry track looks like, and the answer to that won't be found at the ISC tonight. With the torrential rain this week and the already high water table, patches of the well-turfed ground resemble mini waterholes, and it won't take long for the surface to chop up. Super soppers have been used all day to try and shed some of the H2O, and late this afternoon the Westpac Rescue helicopter was called in to help. Even with all the on-field problems, the crowd is pouring into the ground to witness the battle between two clubs who last met in Newcastle 25 years ago. The Hunter has a strong Dragon base, and there will be plenty of split loyalties tonight. On top of the big build-up for tonight's match, the Knights have made their first signing for 1990, that of mercurial halfback Steve Fulmer. Amid rumours that Fulmer had been approached by two Winfield Cup clubs, the Knights hierarchy moved quickly to sign the diminutive player who has been such a hit this season. It's a move that Fulmer welcomes, as he has improved dramatically on his initial sign-on fee 2 years ago of a mere $8,000. But his attention is firmly focused on tonight's game against the Dragons.
They've got a very good forward pack, and their centres, you know, Michael Beattie and Johnson and, you know, Moore, Mackay, you know, he's a state player now, and Steve Lanane, they're a very good side. You know, they might not have got off to a really good start at the start of the year, but they've beat the Broncos. You know, they're a very strong side.
Coach Alan McMahon is critically aware of the importance of the clash between the final five contenders.
You know, today's game certainly, you know, is very important to us, and particularly, you know, coming off our last dismal performance, and you know, that's certainly the rarity. And you know, playing in front of our home crowd tonight, and what promises to be a pretty exciting time. Hopefully, we'll put our best foot forward.
For Knights chairman of selectors Dave Brown, who was captain and coach of the Newcastle team that beat St George 25 years ago, he's in no doubt who's going to win.
Always a country boy. I went away, and I've been away a few times, but I always come back. And I love Newcastle. I love the country, and I just hope we can go on and defeat St George tonight.
You needed plenty of ticker to pull on the boots at Townsend Oval today as South and Central ripped into each other. Crooks for South and Ryan for Central had stints in the bin in the first half, and Hill for South had a rest in the second half. But for all of that, there was some brilliant football played. Central scored first after an intelligent kick across field was picked up by Amos, and he dived over to score. South hit back from a great backline move which saw Nick O'Brien cross for a try. Then the Butcher Boys retook the lead from a bomb that was gathered by Ryan, who passed to Jeff Rock, and he was over. Right on half-time, Jones switched play for the Lions. Fleming threw a super pass to Crooks, who crossed, and at the break it was 10-all. That was the end of the section for Central, as Parr scored 3 minutes after half-time, and then Jones set up John Crook's second try, and the Lions had skipped away. Peter Parr also got another try to put the Red and Whites in an unbeatable position. At Raymond Terrace today, the Newcastle Motor Racing Club held a Hillclimb, and there was all sorts of machinery competing, from cars that look like race vehicles to, well, I'm not 100% sure what they are, but boy can they motor. Sydney driver Gary McFadgen was the quickest, breaking the previous track record of 29.75 seconds with a blistering 29.50 second run. Overall, there were 7 class records broken on the day to cap a very successful carnival.
Not so long ago, Lloyd Avenue East at Chain Valley Bay was home of some of the prettiest waterfront gardens on the shores of Lake Macquarie. Last Tuesday night, when the region was bucketed with torrential rain, that all changed.
Came up at night when everybody's upstairs and don't know what's going on, you know, and when you hear a bit of a noise and come down, you get quite a shock to walk out and step into it, you know.
Is this a common sort of occurrence along here now?
Well, I've had it through the garage a couple of times. It's the first time I've had it through the house.
The trouble this time is that the water hasn't disappeared, and the experts now tell the residents of Lloyd Avenue East that it's highly unlikely it ever will. The reason is simply mine subsidence, as a result of partial pillar extraction by Elcom's New Vale Colliery. Unbelievably, in the last 2 years, it's resulted in the reserve sinking 800 millimetres. On the old scale, that's just under 3 feet. It's seen an island disappear completely, jetties set sail out to sea, and now backyards and gardens turn into water wonderlands.
Oh, I suppose the worst part is, well, you've got to look at the environment. We used to have beautiful lawns and trees and everything, and we've lost all that, you know. It's rather disappointing after all the work you put into it. But that's, and we've got across the creek there, we've lost all that, you know, the birds and the trees.
But there's some good news for the residents. It's that they haven't been left to stick this one out alone. The Mine Subsidence Board has come to their aid. Last week, when the floodwaters raced through several homes, board workers donned overalls and gumboots to help them shift furniture and plants.
Yes, the board got together and had a meeting by phone, and they have made that decision that they will compensate people for anything lost during the floods of last week. The board has bit the bullet and said, well, we will restore the houses to an acceptable level outside the flood zone. If subsidence occurred after that, the board would then re-level those houses once again.
The total cost of such a project will be around the $2 million mark. Work on 2 houses have begun already.
Valley Research Foundation says a startling 35% of Year 10 school leavers enter the retail industry. Most will have no skills or career direction. Düsseldorf Skills Forum and the New South Wales Education and Training Foundation are behind the joint venture program called TRACK, Training for Retailing and Commerce. The Hunter region was selected because it reflects the changing face of Australian industry, away from manufacture towards retailing and the hospitality fields. TRACK is in the pilot stage. In August, 40 students from Gateshead, Waratah and Whitebridge High Schools and St Pius X will go to school 4 days a week and train in a retail outlet the other. TRACK hopes to do away with young people's poor image of the retail business as being boring, short-term and lacking in career direction.
It's got a very poor image with young people. They look at it as Thursday night, Saturday morning jobs, way of getting a few dollars to buy a car or do whatever. They've got no concept of the diversity of jobs that are available within the industry.
At the end of this school year, students can decide to leave the training program and will be issued with a skills passport itemising what they've learned. Students can also continue on to Year 11 and take more time to make up their minds. TRACK success will be measured in 12 months. If all proves well, then students throughout Australia will be able to participate in the scheme.